The same way
Yeah.
when we were talking about God, we're like, well, I mean, come on now. It's time for this to, I'm ready to be out of this pain and out of this season of hurt.
Mm-hmm.
But you can't mistake God's delay for his absence.
Hey, housewives, come on in. You know the dirty dishes are still in the sink from yesterday and the laundry is still in the basket. Pop your AirPods in and make yourself at home here.
I'm Tracy.
I'm Tori.
And
we are your Unlikely Housewives.
Stepping out in faith and believing that God calls the unlikely, we are here to show you the appreciation and validation you deserve, lead you to authentic relationships, and release you of believing the cultural lies to restore your faith and wellness.
Pull up those high-waisted yoga pants, tighten your top knot, and reheat your coffee for the third time. Turn up the volume, and let's go. Hey, housewives.
Hey, friends. We are so excited for this guest today.
Oh my gosh.
She is such a warrior mom.
Yeah.
She truly is the definition of an advocate, an inspiration, just truly encouraging as she shares a story of walking through anxiety, depression, self-harm with her daughter, and also the journey it took for her as a mama.
Yeah. And the way that she talks about getting to a point of just surrendering your child to God, and the way that she says that, like, as much, I know how God's saying, I know how much you love them, but I love them so much more.
Yeah.
Is incredible. And I think the quote that I picked up the best was, or just a tagline of it, is his delay is not his absence. For God. So, but it's another one. I mean, can't you agree that, like, this is another family that checks all the Christian checklist? You just we go to church, pastor's wife, and 3 kids, and happy family, and then to find out your child has been sexually assaulted by a peer, and
yeah, I think it's also
crazy.
The isolation that you as a Christian tend to hold yourself in because fear of judgment, fear of what the community will say. There's a lot of feelings that you go through with that. And I think it's something that she just does such a great job giving that space of, you're not alone. You don't have to hold on to it. That wasn't God's design for you to be in that space and to stay there. It's for you to heal and redeem and to use your story for his glory.
Amen. Can't say it any better than that. So enjoy, housewives. This is a good one.
This is for the one who is in a battle with their child.
Hey, housewives.
Hey, welcome back.
Yes, this is still Tori. I am getting over a little something, and I promise it sounds worse than it actually feels. And so I will try not to clear my throat here on the microphone for you guys to keep you. But in the meantime, just know that my new hobby of smoking cigarettes is well and fabulous. And I'm totally kidding. And we're going to have Tracy introduce our guest today.
Yes. Okay. So today we have Jenn Robb with us. She is a nurse practitioner by training, wellness advocate by passion, and author and coach by divine assignment. She has definitely been the mom who's done school meetings in tears and therapy appointments with a clipboard. Her journey into this world of warrior moms didn't come from a textbook. It came from the trenches. When her daughter faced the heavy reality of anxiety, depression, and self-harm, she didn't have a manual. She had prayer, persistence, and a whole lot of messy grace. She learned to ask the hard questions, push past the guilt, and fight for both her daughter's healing and her own. That season broke her open, but it also built something new. A fierceness, a purpose, and a calling. Now, Jenn helps other moms do the same through Warrior Mom coaching in her book, Warrior Mom Rising. Welcome, Jenn.
Thanks, lady. Yes, I'm so glad to be here.
And I am in the middle of it, in the middle of your book. And for those that aren't on video, I'm showing it off here. Jenn, you just released recently, right?
Mm-hmm. Middle of May is when it got published.
Yeah. So how's it been this summer being an official published author?
So it's been fun. I mean, it's definitely a whole different world. Like I never set out to be an author. And so it's definitely different, like navigating different things, learning how to do podcasts and all of that stuff. It's like a whole new big wide world that I didn't know was out there.
How do you, I mean, when you're pouring yourself out on the pages of this book, and then it's you want to get the message out there that this book and resources available because that's why you do it. How, I mean, is it emotionally draining? Like, do you feel, or is it invigorating because you're like, that there is purpose for this and this is how God has redeemed or is redeeming this whole circumstance?
I think it's a mix of both, right? Like, yes, it's emotionally draining because you're putting yourself out there and you're having to tell the story, right? Again and again and again. And of course, anything that we go through that's hard, we want to kind of put behind us, right?
Yeah.
But it's also invigorating in the fact that I 100% know that like God called me to do this and to write this book and to tell my part of the story, right? Not to tell Chloe's story, but to tell my story. And I feel like we're in a season in the world where there's so much right now for teens, like so much horrible things, right? Like they're just inundated with it on social media and in their school systems. And mental health is like a huge deal for kids, but they don't want to talk about it. And mamas don't want to talk about it, right? Because it's hard and it hurts and it's a place that we don't want to go. And so it's both, right? It's emotionally draining, but it's also invigorating at the exact same time.
Yeah, you just said what we constantly say. It's the and. Like you can feel both things. You can be experiencing both things, joy and grief. You can experience both sides of the pendulum of a journey. So tell our listeners, obviously there is a story of how you got to becoming an author. And one of the things that I love most specifically is you're speaking to my soul because I've walked through something difficult with my children and specifically in the realm of anxiety and years of therapy and a lot of things. And I'm 5 years in and I'm just starting to take care of myself. So I'm very excited that what you are going to continue to share through your story and then obviously through your movement and your mission is really mom first, because mama's got to take care of herself and be healing along the way. And we don't tend to do that very often.
No. And like when I talk to other women, they were like, I think the biggest thing that women say all the time is, I don't have time. I just don't have time. Well, you have to make time, right? Because you matter. That's the thing, is that we matter. I mean, think of all the things that we have to do that we take care of and who we take care of, right? I mean, God has entrusted our families to us and we are still important, even though we're taking care of everybody else. And that's what I want mamas to hear is, yes, you can help your child. You can advocate for your child, but you have to learn how to advocate for yourself too and say, I just need 10 minutes, 10 minutes. I think a lot of mamas hear, oh, I don't have time to do those self-care things because they think that it's got to be big and elaborate and expensive.
Yeah.
But it's not.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, just taking 10 minutes for a little walk, just by yourself to kind of, let the Holy Spirit speak to you makes a difference. Feeling sunshine on your face makes a difference. And that doesn't cost anything.
Yeah.
And I think that's the biggest thing that I want mamas to hear is you have to take care of you because you do matter in all of this.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So can you share the story? Like you guys were picture perfect. It had the Christian checklist of going to church, right? Pastor's wife, all the boxes. And, practically the white picket fence out front, right?
Yeah. I mean, that's how I feel like we were, right? We were the traditional, my husband and I have been married 25 years. We were college sweethearts. We've raised, 3 kids. And then, so we have 2 boys and then we have our baby girl, Chloe. And when she was about 12, she really started to struggle with anxiety and depression. And it was just subtle signs in the beginning, like her grades started slipping. She was wanting to retreat into her room, like, and hide in the dark all day, which is not normal. And so part of it is learning, like, is this normal teen behavior?
Mm-hmm.
Or is this something more, right? And this is where we kind of have to rely a little bit on our mama instincts and trust that, like, we know our children and that something is wrong, right? Even though they don't want to talk about it. But hiding in the dark rooms, she has always loved cheerleading and she didn't want any part of it anymore. And so we went through a season of just anxiety and depression and trying to figure out how to get her out of it. But then self-harm started coming in, where she was actually cutting her arms, her legs. And that was kind of like the first, oh man, this is way bigger and deeper than we knew. We'd never experienced any of this, right? Like, our boys didn't have these issues. But at the same time, like, when you're a Christian, sometimes you don't feel like you can tell anybody, right? You don't want to talk about it because there is a level of judgment, especially around like mental health, right? And like, oh my gosh, well, what did you do wrong? You must have missed something. I mean, what has happened, right?
Yeah.
And so it's like a double-edged sword. It's like you're struggling as a parent what to do for your kid at that time, but also that you don't want to tell anybody because then you feel more isolated and alone, right?
So how did, just pause here for a second, because self-harm is, becoming increasingly popular. So how did you discover that? How did you stumble upon that and seeing that Chloe was doing that to herself?
So one of the telltale signs is that she wanted to wear long sleeves and long pants all year. Okay. Totally out of season, right? Like, especially here in Texas, right? It's hot in the summer and your kid's walking around in sweatshirts and sweatpants. Like, come on. Okay.
Yeah.
But she ended up wearing, or she was getting ready for bed, and I saw her arms. But, with her, she started like in little more indiscreet areas, like up on the top of her arms or like up really high on her thighs.
Okay.
And then she was a cheerleader in the school at the time, and they were at practice, and, cheerleaders, they have the shorter skirts. And one of her coaches actually saw way up high on her thighs when she was being lifted into the air. And it was like, okay, this is a problem. And, I don't know if people really know like what self-harm is, but it's really like a way that they kind of release the emotional pain into a physical form, right? Because if the cutting, even when they're doing it physically, it kind of takes and makes their brains quiet. It calms the emotional and the mental noise. That's what Chloe always called it. She was like, it's just noise. And that's what it's calming. And that's a hard thing for a mama to have to hear, right? Like,
right.
And so we ended up taking her to counseling. And the first counselor was not like the best fit for Chloe. She was good because that's all I had, right? Like, that's who I had to find. And I knew I needed to get Chloe help immediately. And of course, I took her to her pediatrician and then ultimately a psychiatrist. And of course, all the psychiatrist wants to do is put her on pill after pill, right?
Nate.
Well, that comes with its own level of
whole other,
right? Because then she started having side effects and reactions to these medicines. And like, I'm a firm believer in like modern medicine can help you, but it's like more of a Band-Aid, right? And we have to get to the root cause of what is causing that anxiety and that depression and the feelings that she was feeling.
And
right?
I just want to reiterate for our listeners too, that you're a nurse practitioner by trade. Mm-hmm. So you understand all of that as a intellect education part of you, as well as mama. And you're experiencing so much wisdom and knowledge and things that you have, yet you're still in the thick of it. And so I say that because I know all of us mamas think that we're failing when we go through this, and we're not. Like, it doesn't matter how much you know, how much you have, how much you can provide, it still can be a struggle in your home.
100%. And it has nothing to do with with me or what we did or didn't do as a parent, right? Like this was something that Chloe was struggling with.
Yes.
And ultimately, she went through the self-harm period, and we went through a series of trying to find her the right counselor. And, you know, I don't take for granted that I know how to talk to them, how to talk to physicians and all of that stuff, right? Because that's my wheelhouse. But advocating for your kid and telling a doctor that, listen, I don't want her just to be on medication after medication, because that's not fixing the problem, right? That's your right as a mama. And our kids, Chloe could never even voice really what she was feeling, right? Like, I mean, you think about like the adolescent brain, right? Like even as adults, we have times where we struggle to say how we're feeling because it's so much, right? It's heavy. The burden is heavy. And so you think about a teen or even a tween, right? Their brains are just a jumbled mess to begin with.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, they can't speak up for themselves because they don't know. And so that's where the mama in you just has to come, and you have to learn how to advocate for them and learn to be their voice.
Yes.
Right. And just when a physician says, well, let's add these 3 medicines, sometimes it's time to take a step back and go, okay, well, can we start with one and see how they do? And so on and so on. Right. Because you want to get to the root cause. I wasn't trying to make Chloe so emotionally numb from medication that she couldn't feel, right? Because that's part of healing, is to feel the grief, the pain, all of the feelings that come with that, and then figuring out the best way to work through those and how to cope with those things.
Yes.
And so at this time, you're working with a counselor and a psychiatrist, but at this time, it still has not been disclosed, correct? That the root cause
Right.
of where this is coming from. So will you talk about how that came when that disclosure was made?
So it was actually a few months later after we discovered the self-harm. She was having a really bad day and was crying in her room. And I remember just begging her, just tell me what is wrong. Like, tell me what happened. And she finally said that she had been sexually assaulted by another peer. And she wanted to apologize to me for that happening to her. It wasn't her fault. Right. Yeah. But as a mama, I mean, of course, I kind of go into mama bear mode. Like I'm going to, you know, have to go hurt somebody because you have really hurt my baby girl.
Yeah.
And we went through a thing. We had to talk to the police and the DA, and we did all of these things. Right. And ultimately the DA wanted us to push and press charges. But at the same time, I had my baby girl literally in the corner in the fetal position, crying, saying she wanted to die.
Yeah.
I can't put her on a stand or put her in all that. So we had to let that go, right? Like whatever's going to happen to you, someday justice will be done, right? Because at that time you go into full on protection mode. Like, right, you have to protect Chloe. I have to keep her alive and I have to save her. So there's a lot of struggles as a mama too, because you've got to do all these things, but life doesn't stop lifing, right? You have one kid that needs you more than the others. You still have other kids, spouses, work, whatever. But the biggest turning point was on April 4th of 2023. Chloe had been doing okay, and she was now homeschooled. And so we had let her be at home while I went to work in the clinic for a few hours. But again, you got to trust your mama instincts. And I couldn't get a hold of her. And I'm like, something is bad wrong. And I called my 2 boys who were in high school down the road. And I said, just go. Don't pass go. Don't walk out any door. I mean, just straight home. They got home and they found Chloe unresponsive, face down in a pillow, laying in a pool of vomit, not knowing what was going on. They couldn't get her to awake, so they called 911. Finally, after 5 minutes or so, they finally got her to kind of arouse a little bit. We get her to the hospital, not really knowing what she had done. And they started doing all their lab tests. And her alcohol level was 4 times the lethal limit, not the legal, the lethal limit. Chloe's 5 foot tall and 100 pounds, right? Like she's super tiny. And the doctor said that there's no reason that she should be alive. That is like a gut punch to a mama.
Yeah.
And we knew in that moment that the pain that she had been carrying was far more severe than she ever wanted us to believe. And so it was in that moment that we had to kind of go on a different search. But it was also in that moment that God was like, Jenn, you need to surrender her to me. As much as you love her, I love her more. And that's hard, right? Like, I mean, by profession, I'm type A, OCD, a control freak to the nth degree, right? But I now can look back and go, that's what was missing all along the lines. Even though we were Christians and we were going to church and we were doing all the things, I had never fully surrendered her over to God and let God help her, right? Like, and there's something about when you lay it at his feet, when you can finally say, I can't do this anymore. I mean, I was at rock bottom. And so was Chloe, right? I mean, there was no place to go but up because we were at the lowest point. You know, I remember coming home from the hospital and having to put her in the shower to wash the vomit out of her hair because she was so weak physically, but also emotionally and mentally, she was done. She was tapped out.
And at this, how old is she at this point?
15.
15.
So we had been struggling with this for 2.5 years or so, right? But that, again, is where you kind of really have to learn how to vet your therapist, right? Because even me, like who's experienced and knows how to navigate this world, the therapist weren't really helping her deal with what she needed to deal with, right? What I had learned was that Chloe was just telling these counselors what they wanted to hear so that they made her think or them think that she was getting better. Right. And you would see like little small changes, but not really. And then all of a sudden you're hit with, she tried to really take her own life. Right. And the thing is like, you know, people said, well, why did you have liquor in the house? It was behind a locked cabinet. We had 2 locks on the cabinet because we had a house of teenagers. You know what I mean? Like, we were doing everything we could. We put 2 different locks on it and she had figured out how to break those locks.
It's if somebody wants it bad enough, they're going to get it. They're going to find it.
Right.
I mean, it's, you know, it's like if there's a will, there's a way. And it doesn't matter what precautions that is behind.
I was going to ask too. So clearly, obviously she tried to take her life and no health complications. Like they were able to revive her and cleanse her out, you know, detox her, and she was okay. Oh, praise God.
That's meaningful.
Physically, she was okay.
Right.
Yeah. Now we were down a whole nother rabbit hole, right, of more emotional pain. And of course, Chloe, she would just kept saying, I'm sorry, mama. I'm sorry, mama. Well, I don't need you like to be sorry. Like, I want you to feel better, right? Like,
right.
You don't have to apologize, but know that we're going to get through this and we're going to fix this.
Yeah.
Right. And so then it was finding the perfect counselor for her. Right. And so that's where vetting and really kind of looking at their credentials comes into play. I finally found an amazing therapist who was trained in adolescence, but also in trauma. And she ended up doing cognitive behavioral therapies with Chloe. And that was a game changer. Now, it wasn't easy because Chloe basically had to relive every aspect of what she had been through, right?
Yeah.
But in order to get the brain to heal, you have to allow the certain parts to be exposed like an open wound, and then it can start to heal by doing different therapies and modalities. So the medicines were still there, right, to kind of help ease some of the anxiety that she was going to feel, but she was no longer dependent on those medications. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Okay. I just want parents to know, like, so often we think not in my backyard, like, oh, that'll never happen to me. I'm sure that that's a feeling that, like, oh, that wouldn't be the case. And denial is such a long part of the process because we're not willing to trust our mama instincts.
Mm-hmm.
We're like, I know something's wrong. I know something's wrong. No, but that can't possibly it. No, I know that family. They would never. Or the sleepover, it would be great. Like there are those things, like, not that God has redeemed and is using all of this pain and your story and Chloe's story and Sherry, for his glory and for healing in his kingdom. But I just want to remind parents and our listeners here that it is so often where we think we are, what's the word?
We're not immune.
Not immune.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, and part of that is, we were always really cautious with Chloe. Like, right, we didn't let her go places that we didn't know. We always had people more in our home.
Yeah.
But you're not immune to it, but it doesn't mean that you did anything wrong.
Right. Exactly.
And that's the thing that will eat at you as a mother, right? Is the mom guilt, the mom shame.
Yes.
And 100% of the reality is we don't really know what goes on in other people's homes, right? Like, I know we like to think that we know them really well, right? But at the end of the day, this wasn't happening in her home. This was happening at another adult's house when she would go over there. So you don't always know. You can try to help your children to teach them, right? Like, if this happens, then you do X, Y, Z or whatever, right?
Right.
But at the end of the day, you have to let go of the guilt that you feel as a mama, like you didn't do enough to protect them.
Yeah.
Because those feelings are real. I struggled with that for a long time. But there's no way of me knowing, because Chloe had kept it so big of a secret for her and had seemingly started acting, like everything was normal until it was too much for her to bear.
Right. Well, and like you said, it was that God knew the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
God knew her before she was conceived in your womb. Like, God knew what her story would be. And he knew exactly how he was going to use her and use you. And it's not that he wants us as his children to suffer, but it's he sees.
God uses our story, right? There is pain. There is purpose in the pain. Okay.
Yeah. Right.
One thing that I've had to learn is, because I think sometimes as Christians, we get really bogged down with, this won't happen to me. Why me? Woe is me kind of mentality, right?
Yeah.
God never one time said that as Christians, we weren't going to have trials and that we weren't going to have struggles. Not one time. And the biggest thing, though, is that if you change your perspective, right? Now, listen, this has taken years for me to get to this point. But if mamas can change their perspective, then you can think about, like, how your actions and your attitude can minister to somebody else, right? How can you be a light? You have to think about, like, why is it not, instead of life happening to you, right? Which now puts you in a victim mentality.
Right.
How is life happening for you? Right? So now your perspective is shifted, right? Now you've become, okay, if it's happening for me, what is God trying to teach me in this moment? What is the purpose in all of this stuff, right? I don't think for one second that anything that we go through in life doesn't happen for a purpose, right?
Yeah.
Obviously, depending on our actions and reactions, they can be negative or positive. And then but watching Chloe go through the cognitive behavior therapy, feel the struggle, feel the pain, relive what happened to her like it was happening again. But now watching her come out on the other side, that is healing, but that is also God's grace, right?
Yeah.
Like when you think about, and I even tell Chloe this, like, Chloe, I know I would never, not one time wish that to happen to anybody, but it did. And now, how is God going to use that and use your story to help someone else? Right? So now it's looking at it happened for me. God could have any time snapped his fingers and said, that's not going to happen. Not today. But he didn't. And we have to be at peace with that, right? That God knows better than we do. And even though we want him to immediately take away the pain and the hurt and the shame and the guilt, it's a process, but it's a process of learning, right? I mean, we live in this Amazon society, I feel like, where everything is like, next day, like, whoop, we want it to be right there.
That is such a better way to say it. Amazon society instead of a microwave mentality. Like, I mean, I feel like, yes, the next day, that instant gratification kind of thing. Yes.
Right, but that's the same way. And we're the same way when we're talking about God. We're like, well, I mean, come on now. It's time for this to, I'm ready to be out of this pain and out of this season of hurt. But you can't mistake God's delay for his absence.
Oh, that's good.
That is
He knows better than we do. But that's part of the Amazon society that we live in, right? Like if he didn't answer it today and he didn't pull me out of the pits today, well, then he must not be there. But that's not the reality of the situation. And when I bring it back to like becoming an author, right? Like that was never my intent. Never when we started this journey was that ever even on the radar.
Yeah.
But God has a greater purpose, right? And if there's one mama that can hear that there's hope and you can overcome and thrive no matter the outcome, then his purpose has been carried out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so good. Okay. I want you to kind of switch gears a little bit. Obviously, we're so thankful that Chloe has gone through the cognitive behavior therapy and, is on her healing journey. What did she also do EMDR? That was a question. I feel like we talked about that together before. Okay. Through all of this, I know obviously there's healing for you in watching her heal, but what does your journey look like? Because that's one of the, biggest pieces of the book and your story is what the steps that you took to walk through your own healing journey alongside her.
Yeah. So she did do EMDR, which is a form of cognitive behavior therapy, and it was a game changer for her.
Yeah.
But it's just like anything else, right? When you watch your kid become joyful again, right? And they're finding joy in the things that they've loved, right? She's back to competitive cheerleading and she is living her best life. She's on a world's team now.
Yay.
And she's doing all those things. But as a mama, and I don't think that you even have to walk through a really tough season of mental health struggles like we did with Chloe to lose sight of who we are as a woman, right? And who we were. I mean, I remember like literally waking up one day after her April 4th instance, and I was thinking, I was like, I don't even know who I am anymore. Like there's nothing, my whole focus had become on keeping the family unit together and keeping Chloe alive.
Yeah.
And that is not a fun place to be as a mama and as a woman, right? I mean, we have identities. God created us to be these beautiful, amazing humans, but we lose it because we put ourselves on hold for everybody else, right? And so learning to take care of myself and to advocate for myself was first and foremost part of the healing journey, right? And that started with, just for me, it was like going back to the word, right? And going back and listening to worship music to refresh my soul because that's what I needed, right?
Yeah.
But it was also finding joy in the small things, right? Joy and an attitude of gratitude will change your whole perspective on things.
Yeah.
I was all of a sudden thankful that Chloe was making a mess in her room again, right? That's the dumb little things, right? That as long as we get so hung up on. But self-care doesn't have to be expensive. It doesn't have to be spa days, nail days, hair days. It can be.
Hasn't that like been hijacked? I mean, we all think that like a self-care is like putting the eye mask on and the lip mask and the green face and and just like laying there lounging like this lizard. And I'm like, that's great if you can do that. Like that is not realistic. Like there is not enough time in a day, in a week, in a month for me to get all of that done.
Well, but that's just it, right? Like that's what we hear and that's what we think. Oh, well, you got to make time for yourself. Well, that must mean it has to be really expensive and it has to require a whole lot of time.
Yeah.
I mean, just walking outside and feeling the sunshine on your face is healing and refreshing. The goal is to help you find something that replenishes and refreshes your soul, right? What puts you on fire? Because once you pour into yourself just a little bit, then you're more able to pour into everybody else in a better way, right? We can't, if we get hung up on, I don't have time for me, and then we get beat down, and now we're so exhausted that we have nothing else to give. That's why we get short-tempered and we're moody, and our kids are like, why are you yelling at me? I didn't, you know what I mean? Like all of these things. But all of that has to do with because we're not taking care of us.
Yeah.
I mean, and let's be I have an amazing husband, right? But he can't take care of me the way that I can take care of me, right?
Yeah.
Like he can bring me, a glass of water and dote on me and do those things. But what really replenishes my soul is me being in a car by myself listening to worship music, right? Or being able to stand in a hot shower for 15 uninterrupted minutes.
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
And so finding those little things, and, I've had women say to me, oh, well, I take, time at night after the kids go to bed because I just sit and scroll on social media. Ladies, that is not self-care.
No, it is not.
You're punching yourself in the face every time you do that because we get into this attitude of comparison, right? Oh, well, Janie's on her trip with her family and look how perfect her family is. She doesn't know my struggles.
Yeah.
So then you just get into this cycle of continuous to be beat down and you're causing pain and issues yourself.
Yep.
Right. But coming off of social media, now listen, I'm a firm believer in social media. I like it. But that can't be your me time or your self-care.
Right. Yeah.
Right. That cannot be that. You have to find something that 100% is about you and pours directly into your soul and leaves you feeling uplifted.
Yeah.
And I think the examples that you've given actually are time with our Creator. Mm-hmm. Like really, like there's nothing between you and a shower head and you just standing in a hot shower. Like that's you and Jesus right there in the shower. That sounds weird. But that's it. Like you on a walk with his sunshine on your face. That is you and Jesus right there. Like a 10-minute drive with the windows down, listening to worship music. That is Jesus right there. Like all of those things are, where it's just you and Jesus. Like there's not anything else. And that's really the self-care is going to seek him in that he refreshes our soul.
Just a question for you, Jenn. When your daughter, when Chloe was going through therapy, were you in your own? Was you and your husband, when your family? What did that look like for you guys?
So Chloe did her own. I never went to therapy because we weren't really to that point. Like we had each other, but I will say that I have gone to therapy in other seasons, right? I don't think there's anything wrong with it. And if a mama needs counseling in that moment because her child is struggling, then by all means, you should go and seek that out. Like, my husband and I have gone to marriage counseling on different instances because there's different seasons that are causing friction or whatever.
Yeah,
right.
absolutely.
And there's nothing to be ashamed of. I feel like there's such this stigma around seeking therapy and counseling, right? But those people are wise and they know how to mediate when sometimes we can't mediate, right? And therapy for kids, the other thing that I learned is there were things that Chloe would tell her therapist that I still don't know. And mamas have to be okay with that.
100%.
Right? You don't need to know everything.
Mhm.
I don't know all of the details that happened to her.
Yeah.
And that's Chloe's. She said, I don't want you to know because that's her way of protecting me.
Yeah. Yep.
And unless it's like life threatening or they're going to hurt themselves or someone else, they don't have to tell you. And you need to be okay with that. You need to say, I want that safe space to be for you.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so I didn't ask Chloe when she came out. I could tell if it was a hard session or not because she was upset or whatever. But I didn't say, well, tell me everything y'all talked about. And I think as mamas, we want to know because we feel like we need to know because, again, we want to control the narrative.
Sure.
But you don't need to know.
Mm-hmm.
You need to let them find who their safe place is and who they can talk to without the fear of like you knowing all the details.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's so good.
I think as parents, we need to be reminded too that there is a level that is built into our kids of our kids wanting to protect us as parents.
100%.
Yep.
And too often I think we just dismiss that or don't even think about it. But a lot of times our children do things or don't tell us things because they're like, well, I'm not going to tell mom because I know that would hurt her.
Yeah, I had to learn that years ago. My daughter was so little. I think she was like 6. And I remember her therapist, we would go in for like a 5-minute review afterwards and get the tools and things that we were going to work on for the week. And one of the things that she said, she taught me to say to my daughter was, if she came to me, but I could tell she was hesitant, I would say to her, you don't have to hold things back because you're afraid to hurt mommy's feelings or upset mommy. My emotions are mine. I'll handle it on my own, but I am 100% here for you to tell me anything and everything that you need to right now. Mm-hmm. And it was almost like just giving her the permission, to talk because she was going through so much that she didn't want to upset me. She just wanted me to be the happy place. And, I didn't know, and it was the greatest thing ever. And now I say it all the time, like to my kids and even my husband, like when I'm in the right mindset, that is, I'll say like, hey, don't worry about hurting my feelings. If there's something that you need to tell me about this, or we need to process this, tell me. And that, seems
but
to
I think that's good advice, especially as our children get older, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, let's face it. Like I have young adults now. My oldest is 20 and then I have a 19-year-old and then Chloe is now 17. Raising young adults to me is far harder than raising like small children, right? Because when they're small, they're in your control. Right. Mm-hmm. But now you have a young adult that you've poured into, you spent your life investing into them. Right. And even at the expense of your own self. But those young adults are going to go and make their own decisions. Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah. They're going to make decisions that you would disagree with. They're going to make decisions that have negative consequences for them. Yeah. Right. But again, it's a learning process. Mm-hmm. But one thing that I've really had to learn is that I want my kids to be able to come to me with anything, right? I don't care if it's hard for me, if it hurts me, whatever, because I need you to be able to tell me whatever as an adult, still come to me and say, yeah, this happened and this is the consequence. And now I don't know what to do. Mm-hmm. But if they fear your reaction, then they're not going to come to you.
Right.
Yep.
And I mean, I can very vividly remember like my oldest son wanting to tell me something, that his coach had said to him one time when he was in middle school. And of course, Mama Bear came out like, all right, who do I need to go kick right now? Because that's like the Mama Bear in me, right? Like I'm going to protect my kid. But then it was like, well, Mom, I don't even want to tell you that because you want to go all Mama Bear crazy.
Yeah.
So like being open and having an open dialogue with them and then learning how to control your reactions will give them that permission to come to you and tell you whatever.
Yeah.
Right. But I'll tell you one thing that we did with Chloe, and I even talk about it in the book. We gave Chloe a code word.
Mm-hmm.
She was having a bad day and she was crying or sad or upset, or she had a really difficult therapy session. If she came to me, or she really would go to her brothers and say, mousse cake. Chloe loves chocolate mousse cake from Olive Garden. Like, it's her favorite thing. And so for her, that was an indication that I'm in a bad place right now, but I don't want to talk to anybody.
Mm-hmm.
I just want you to know that I'm here in this bad place. Hug me, tell me that it's going to be okay, but don't ask me any questions, and go get me a piece of mousse cake. You know what I mean? And her brothers or her dad would run to Olive Garden and they would go bring her. Sometimes they would bring the whole pie, depending on how bad it was.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, we need it for rainy days. But that was something that made her feel safe. Like, she didn't have to explain anything.
Yeah.
Right. And so finding something that just gives them the freedom to say, I just want you to tell me that you love me and that you're here and you'll still be here, but don't ask me any questions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You have to give them that permission and be okay with that.
Yep.
Yeah. That is so good.
Oh, jinx.
You owe her a Coke now.
Yeah, I know.
Okay, well, I do want to just encourage our listeners to get this book, Warrior Mom Rising, A Mom's Battle to Advocate, Overcome, and Thrive. And Jenn, can you tell our listeners where they can find you, where they can follow you, get your coaching, and just hear more from you?
Yeah, so the book is on Amazon. You can also, I have a website called warriormomcoach.net. There's free resources on there for their teens and for mamas. Then there's also, links on there to sign up for, like, on my email list. There's a link on there to join the Facebook community, Warrior Mom Rising on Facebook. And that is there because it's a group of moms that have all been through some struggle, right? It doesn't all have to be just like mine.
Yeah.
But we offer a community of a safe community, right? And I feel like women need to understand that you don't have to necessarily go into all the details. But if you need prayer, then that's there too, right? Like, you're having a hard week, your kid's having a hard week. We talk about that. We also talk about funny things that happen to us as mamas, like your biggest screw up as a mama, right? Like, funny, nitpicky things. But also, I just think community is important for women, right? Especially when you're going through hard seasons. But having a group of women that have been there in some hard season and there's no judgment is so important, right? And feeling the empathy and the sympathy along with it, that they have walked in your shoes.
Yeah.
So there's the Facebook community, and then the coaching, all the information is on my website. And then they literally can email me or text me directly through that.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, we just want to say thank you so much, Jenn, for being obedient and putting it all out there like God asked you to. And that's hard, and switching gears. And, I bet this wasn't on your bingo card when, you signed up to, be a wife, mother, and a nurse practitioner. And just the way that you are an inspiration and a
Advocate.
Yeah. And that it's possible. Like, you can overcome it. Like, you're an example. You are, in that you can have an attitude of gratitude and still have gone through the hard and still survive. So just want to say thank you so much for being that.
Yeah. And even though she's not on here, thank you to Chloe and for her story to be a part of this. And for you, obviously, she's given permission to share and walk through this with you. And I just continue to pray for her healing and just how God's going to use her in this redemption story for the both of you.
Thank you. I've loved chatting. That's so fun.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here.
Well, until next time, housewives.
Bye, housewives.
Bye.
Whether we made you laugh or cry today, we pray you feel appreciated, bolder and braver than yesterday, stronger and more faithful for tomorrow, and living in who you were made to be today.
Join our online community on Facebook, link in the show notes.
And be sure to review and subscribe on Apple Podcasts or wherever you enjoy listening. Until next time, housewives, we give you permission to walk confidently, free, and to be intentional in your slippers or stilettos.